Hey guys, what's going on? In this video, you'll be learning about booleans and conditionals. And let me tell you that conditionals are statements which evaluate certain values to true or false. And true or false are called as booleans in programming domain. Now, before we start off with conditionals, it's very imperative to learn about comparison operators. Now, let me quickly go ahead and grab the code for that. Okay, so these are the comparison operators. Now, as you can see in the first line, I have written equal or test for equality, which is actually double equals to. And if you remember in the previous videos, we have used this sign, but this is actually not an equals to, which this actually stands for assignment operator. So this is basically an assignment operator. And if you write something like this, a equals to 2, so what it does is it assigns the variable a with value 2. Now we'll be looking at the first operator, which is equals to comparison operator. Now for that, let's understand it with the help of a print statement. As I told you before, that equals or double equals, as we can call it, it tests for equality. Now if I write something like 2 equals to 2, now let me print it first and I will tell you the reason of the output. Now as you can see that it gave me an output true. Now it's very important to understand what output this comparison operator gives us. Now comparison operators actually evaluates certain values and gives the output whether it's true or false. In this case, we made use of equals, or you can say comparison operator equals, and we checked whether 2 is equal to 2. In actually in mathematics, 2 is equal to 2, right? So it gave us the boolean true. Now let's check for something like 3 equals to 2. Now if I try to run it, you'll see it gave me false, because certainly 3 is not equal to 2. Now the very next comparison operator is not equals, so let's test that one as well. So is 3 not equal to 2? Yes, definitely 3 is not equal to 2. Hence, as I told you before, comparison operators only gives you two outputs, either true or false. Hence it gave as true, because 3 is not equal to 2. Now I also want you once again to remember that true or false in programming domain, we call them as booleans, right? Now the reason why I started with comparison operators is because when using conditionals, we use a lot of comparison operators to understand them. And since comparison operators also make you understand what booleans are, in this case true or false, I've decided to teach it first. Now, this was all about the not equal to operator. Now the rest of the operators are similar to the operations, the greater than and the less than and things like that. And oh yeah, we can also pass them into variables and we can make use of them as well. For example, if I do b equals to 3, and if I write a not equal to b, which in this case is false, because 3 not equal to 3, no, 3 is equal to 3, so it will print as false. There you go. Let's quickly check the greater than and greater than equals to as well. So is a greater than b? No, 3 is not greater than b, so it will print as false. Now if we check is a greater than or equal to b, as in this case, we will check, it will give us true, because a is 3 is greater than or equal to 3, so it gave us true. Now, as I told you, variables can hold any values like string, integers. So let's pass a equals to hello, and let's pass b equals to hello as well. Now, if I try to do a equals to b, so it will check, is the value containing a the same in b? Now if I try to run, it will give us true. Yes, because hello is equals to hello, right? The interesting part is, what if I do let me delete that as well, is a greater than b? In this case, what do you think it will print? Now let me clear the output and let me run it again. If I clear it and run it, you will see it give me a false. The reason why it is, first of all, it traverse the string character by character, and it checks whether each characters are equal. H is equal to H, yes, it is equal, and in this case the entire hello is evaluated to true, because the contents of each characters of A is belonging to each and every characters of B. In this case, A is not greater than B, so that's why it printed A equals to B as true. Now for better understanding, let's put something like A equals to hello and B is equal to, let's say, hello. Now in this case, h and h are both same. Now here e is smaller than I. Now in this case, a is, let me put less than actually. In this case, e is certainly smaller than I. A is less than b, right? So let me quickly run it. So it gave us true. So that was about the comparison operators. Now let's quickly go back to the conditionals. Let me delete it very quickly. Okay, so there are three conditionals: if, else, and elif. Now we'll be understanding them one by one in depth. Let's start off with if statement. Now an if statement, what it does, let me comment it and let me tell you. If statement, you start off with an if keyword and you write something that evaluates to true or false. Now, and after that you put a colon and press enter, and then you press a tab key. Now the reason why we put tab is that we want the Python to know that we are actually inside the if block. Now write something, any code inside it, and once you want to come out of this, you just hit enter, and you come back to the original line. Instead of indentation, you come back to the original line. Now this was the syntax of if conditional. Now let's actually make use of it. Now something here I want to tell you importantly is that here if statement only will allow the code inside it to execute if it evaluates to true only. Let me show you with the help of an example. If I type if true, hint I am inside if. Let's quickly go ahead and run this. Now as you can see here, it returned I am inside if. The reason why is that I hard coded here the value as true. Actually, we don't write things like this. We write a certain statement and that evaluates whether true or false. Now to make you understand, I directly evaluate true because I wanted to tell you that if statement or any conditional will allow it to enter inside only if the value evaluates to true. Now what happens if I give the value as false? Now you will notice that the Visual Studio Code has actually dimmed the statement, meaning it wanted to tell me that this statement won't execute. To double check, let's run this again. So as you can see here, nothing has printed. So let's, for better understanding, let's quickly try print I am outside if, and if I run it, you can see to directly print I am outside if without printing this statement. Now let's quickly understand it with the help of some examples. Let's say we have an animal variable with string dog. We want to only execute the content inside if the animal is dog. So for that we will write if animal equals to dog, then only you enter inside if and print hey I am dog. So if I run it, what happens here actually is animal variable is having string dog. Now when I came here and I evaluated, hey, is animal is equal to dog? Remember the equality operator that we used? It tests for equality whether animal is having the exact same string as dog, and this ultimately evaluates to true, right? Because in the previous example we saw the comparison operators either gives you Boolean values, right? Either true or false. It evaluates to true and it enters the if statement. Now and then it prints hey I am a dog. So if I run it, you'll see it will say hey I am a dog. Now if I do something like cat, now here definitely this statement will evaluate to false, and hence this statement won't be printed. Now many beginner level people, what they do is, if you have noticed that in Visual Studio Code, this is automatically indented. That is, indentation is a space of tab. When you press tab, it gets a space of this much. So whenever you're writing an if statement or content inside if statement, you should put a space of tab, so that you're telling Python that hey, whatever I'm writing, it should only be applicable inside this if statement. Now Suppose if you want to execute something if this condition is not met. Now here comes the else statement. Now what you do is if animal equals to dog is false, you want to execute something else. So for that you type else colon print I am something else. So if I run it, it will definitely print I am something else because this condition evaluated to false, and else the subsequent statements that we write after the if condition only be evaluated if the above is false. Now in this case, cat is not equal to dog, and hence it directly skipped this entire if statement and entered the else statement, and else does not evaluate anything, directly executed this statement. Now let's suppose what happened if we rewrite this as dog. You will notice that this would evaluate to true. Let me actually delete it because I don't want to repeatedly write it. Now if I run this, you will notice that it will only print hey I am a dog instead of printing hey, I'm something else as well. The reason is here the evaluation was true. It printed hey I am a dog, and it completely went out of the if conditionals. Now one thing to notice is that if and else come in pair. So that means if statement executes to false, then only I will execute else, and if by chance if evaluated to true, else won't be evaluated. Now let's understand. Now the problem with if and else is this is a binary decision, right? Now if the animal is dog, then only print something like hey I am a dog, else print hey I am something else. What if suppose if I want to include multi decision? For that we make use of something like elif. Now one thing to make sure is that elif comes before else, right? Now let's write elif animal equals to cat, then print I am a cat. Let's quickly run it. Let me clear the output, and if I run it, you will notice it will say I am a dog. Oops, I forgot to change here as cat. Okay, let's understand this opportunity. Let's take this opportunity to understand it more. Now here what happened is the animal equals to dog evaluated to true. It prints this line and it completely went out of this if conditional. So an if conditional is a combination of if, elif and else, and it completely, once this value evaluated to true, it completely went out of this. Now let's put cat again as I put cat. Now here you will notice that if this conditional is false, the very next statement that it executes is elif. Now, elif has another conditional which says if animal equals to cat, then print this. Now in this case it will print I am a cat. So let's run it. It will print I am a cat. Now suppose if I want to make another decision, I can add one more elif, and if I type animal equals to sheep, then print I am a sheep. Now here let me quickly go ahead and change this to sheep, and you'll notice it will only print sheep and exit. Now one rule of thumb is that you can use as many elifs as possible, but only one if and one else per entire conditional. Now there is something concept of nested ifs as well, which we'll be touching very soon. I hope you understand about these conditionals, and also I made use of only string values. You can either make use of integers as well to experiment with it and understand it more. Alright, now let's talk about nested ifs for a bit. Okay, so when do we use nested ifs? Now when you're programming, certain times there a case may arise where you want to invoke a conditional inside another conditional. In that case we may use of nested ifs. Okay, let's understand it with the help of an example. For example, if we have a number, say 30, and if I do if number is greater than 10, inside if we write print above 10, then after that we put another if conditional. Inside we pass if number is greater than 20, print above 20, and as I told you, this if you can see here is an independent if having its own elif and else statement, and this if is a parent if having its own elif and else statement. So we can use an else conditional like else and the number is not above 20, and it come out of this entire this else if else pair, and we address another else, print the number is less than 10. All right, so I'll tell you what happened here. So we initialize a number 30, right? So suppose if the number is greater than 10, generally enter inside this if block which contains another if with its own else, which says if the number is greater than 20, print above 20, else the number is not above 20, and if at all the number is not greater than 10, it will directly print the number is less than 10. Okay, let's print it and find the answer. Okay, so here number 30 is greater than 10, so it printed above 10. Then inside we checked another conditional that if number is about 20, yes it is about 20, so it print above 20. Now as I mentioned to you before, if ifs are encountered to be true, we don't execute elif and else, so this else is not executed and this else is not executed. Now let's change the number and see what happens. Let's put 15 and run. So in this case what should happen is 15 is greater than 10, it will enter the if statement, it will print above 10, then it will check another number which is greater than 20 or not. It's definitely not greater than 20, so it will enter inside else and it will print the number is not about 20. And since this if has been executed, it won't execute else, so it should be above 10, the number is not above 20. Let's run this. There you go. Now for the last test case, let's put the number as 5. So in this case it won't enter the if statement at all, if block at all. It will directly, since this turns out to be false, number is not greater than 10, it will directly execute else, that is the number is less than 10, and it will exit. Okay, so that was about nested ifs. Now let's quickly understand the Boolean operators. Now there are certain Boolean operators that we use, and the prominent ones are and, or, and not. Now where do we use these Boolean operators? We use Boolean operators when we are using multiple comparison operators inside ifs, if or conditionals. So for example, if I'm typing like a so let me syntax it out, comment it out. If the syntax is something like this: if evaluation 1, evaluation 2, then we have do something. Now in this case we need something to connect these two evaluations, right? To connect these evaluations we make use of Boolean operators. Let's understand it with the help of an example. So let's type a equals to 5 if a is greater than 1. Let's understand and operator first. And a is less than 6, print yes. Now I will tell you what exactly and does. So and only allows you to enter inside if and only if both of the evaluations result in true. Now here if you look carefully, the first statement evaluates to true, right? 5 is greater than 1, true. Then we encountered and, which should say that the next one should also be true, right? So a is less than 6, which also evaluates to true. Now since both of them evaluated to true, the and operator will allow you to enter, and hence it will print yes. So let's run it, and hence it printed yes. Now suppose if we put any one of these, if any one of these evaluates to false, say if a is less than 1, so this definitely evaluates to false, then our interpreter encountered this and statement, then it finds that hey, this statement is already false, So I need every statement to be true, right? So I'm not going to evaluate this, so it won't print yes. So let me run it. It's did not print anything because as AND operator demands, it want the both the evaluators to give us true. Now let's take the condition otherwise as well. If a is greater than 1 and if a is greater than 6, now the first condition is definitely true, and when you encounter and, then it should mean that the other one should also be true. But in this case 5 is greater than 6 is false, and hence won't be executed. Now one way to get around is to make use of OR operator. Now OR operator, Boolean operator, what it does is if any one of these two evaluates to true, then only I will allow you to enter. In this case, a is greater than 1, 5 is definitely greater than 1, it this evaluates to true, but a is greater than 6 evaluates to false. But as operator true, or sorry, or operator demands, it only requires one evaluation to be true. So since a is greater than 1 evaluate to be true, so it will enter inside and print yes. So that was about OR operator. Now there's an interesting operator, Boolean operator called NOT. Now what NOT does is it inverts the Boolean value. So let me quickly go ahead and give the A value true. Now if I do if A print I am in, right? So let's quickly run it. It printed I am in because A is having a Boolean value true. Now what if I type if not A? Now what not A does, whatever value A is holding, Boolean value A is holding, it will invert this value to false. Now if I try to run this code, it won't print it because the entire conditional is now false and won't be entering this statement, it won't be executing this statement. Okay, let's flip this. If I put A is false, now this here is having false value. Now here I put if not false, which means the entire statement evaluated to true. Now this time it can print I am in. So that was about the Boolean operators. Now let's quickly, I want to give you some pointers to remember. Now conditionals like if automatically considers variables to be true if they are holding some values. For example, if a equals to 12, b equals to a, and if I type if a print yes, if b print yes. Now here if you notice that I have used two ifs, so don't consider that if a is valid to true, it will skip this statement. It is only in the case of elif and else. Now this if is another if statement which has its own pair of else and elifs. Now in this case, as I told you, if any variable is holding some sort of value except 0, remember except 0, it would be automatically evaluated to be true. Now a is having a variable, a variable is holding value 12, so it will be evaluated true and print yes, and b is having a string hey, it will be evaluated and print yes. So here as you can see, it gave us both the outputs. Now what happens if suppose if we give value 0, and let's suppose if we give value here as 0 as well. Now one thing I told you is that if you remember the previous lectures, now string 0 is not actually integer 0. That's because this Python considers it as a string and does not assign an integer value to it. So in this case, only b will be evaluated to be true because a is holding 0 value, and hence only yes will be printed. You can see yes is printed. So that was all about the pointers I wanted to give. I hope you really enjoyed this video about conditionals and booleans. And if you really like this video, you can do a couple of things. You can really, the easiest one is you can simply like and subscribe the channel, and you can also spread the word to others who really want to learn Python. It will be a really great help to us for our channel to grow. Alright guys, see you in the next lecture.